You're right. Yes. I just wanted to do a quick word. Yes, Lord. That is page 13. I will try and check. Yeah. I mean, this is a quite so you know, this is not normal. This is valid. Not smart. Right, good to see you, buddy. Don't worry, I'm no. So, could you look up this one? Oh, really, that's fantastic. Especially wouldn't put that in. So there we go. Anyway, let's move on. Have you met this woman before? I've paid my email address. I think that's why that's why I think you want something, but they won't get it to me. That's why. Worse end of stuff. Yeah, well, I probably have. I think I probably did send out a lot of it, but then I know you did get them. But very annoying. My birthday comes. I know, obviously, at some point you must get back. We had a great time. Good. Right. Oh, there's a little box over there.
Yes,
There's 4 books. Oh, right. That's they haven't. Oh, right. Yep.
Not really enough space for any church or even just got flocks of people.
They just turn you back through. I think we're going to ask you to sit over there. There's 2 hospices. The yeah, okay, on back. Yeah, that's great. Good.
Good to see you. How are you?
What are you doing?
Sorry?
What are you doing?
Chairing the parish council.
Oh, brilliant. Well, you'll feel at home here then.
Yeah.
So I was just waiting for Alice to come down here. Ready to go. Alice, you want to come over? I don't know where.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Karen, I'm the rector here. It's my very great pleasure and honour to welcome you to St Bartholomew's Church this evening in our relatively new space for gatherings just such as this. This year we've got some more things lined up, but I think this is a first this evening, the launch of a blog, and so before I sit down and introduce you properly, I just want to wave this at you because later this week is our annual King Alfred weekend. We have a great commemoration service on Sunday, marking the death and the legacy of King Alfred the Great. And in this church, lectures and a concert start on Thursday. So do pick up one of these from the table as you go out this evening when you leave. But in the meantime, I'm really excited to introduce Edward Fennell, who you all know, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about his new blog, Rural Rides and Rural Riots.
Thank you very much, Karen. And also thanks to you and St Bart's for allowing us to be here this evening. Very much appreciate it. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for turning out on this autumn evening for our launch event for my new blog, Rural Rides and Rural Riots, which you might have seen this afternoon and is going out more generally tomorrow. The focus of the blog are the events of 200 years ago, the 1820s, as they gradually built up in the southern counties, especially in Hampshire, to a crisis of rioting and civil disorder at the end of the decade. They begin with a period of what was called at the time agricultural distress in 1822, and they end with the widespread violence known as the Captain Swing riots. The outcome was the Maxi trial, or Special Commission as it's called, in Winchester Great Hall in December 1830, which resulted in almost 140 men sentenced to transportation or imprisonment, and 6 men. The material will come from a variety of sources of the time, newspaper articles, commentaries by people such as William Cobbett, the famous author of Rural Rides, and also from poets and other writers who were tuned into the growing sense of crisis in rural areas. To animate all of it, and to top it all off, we have the one and only Barry Sherlock, Supreme Master of Hampshire history. At the end, we give a wide introduction to conditions of the 1820s and how matters panned out later in the decade. There will then be a few minutes at the end if there's anything you want to say. But to complete my list of thanks, I should also add that I'm enormously grateful to our well-known artist, Kate Dicker, who is responsible for having provided a splendid image of the rural rider, which will be the masthead and the face of the blog. We will be promoting the image widely, and I'm delighted to say copies of the image will be available. Now, every story needs to have a starting point. The reason I've chosen the 2 meetings convened in the same place within a week of each other, which together highlighted the converging tensions which would characterise the decade. The venue was the Black Swan Hotel in Winchester, at the junction of what's now the High Street and Southgate Street. You can still see, you probably have seen it, you can still see the preserved Black Swan figure on the modern building today. But back in the 1820s, and indeed for a long time after, it was the focus of hospitality trade in Winchester. Now, the first of these 2 events in the Black Swan was a meeting of the local yeomanry, part-time volunteer soldiers used by the authorities to maintain law and order. Now, they'd gathered to express their concern about the growing level of social unrest around them in Hampshire. These people had to be taken seriously. Their equivalent yeomanry in Manchester had been responsible for the notorious Peterloo massacre just 3 years earlier, so they were forced to be reckoned with. And Alice will give us an account of what happened from an article in the Hampshire County newspaper on October the 1st, 1822.
A meeting of the yeomanry. In consequence of the existing agricultural distress, a numerous and very respectable meeting of the yeomanry of Hampshire was held at the Black Swan Inn this afternoon, at which a requisition to the High Sheriff was agreed on and signed by those present to call a county meeting for the purpose of taking into consideration the propriety of petitioning Parliament on the subject of the present alarming state of their property, and on the subject of a remedy for the evils now endured, and for the greater evils which, if not prevented, appear to be inevitable. It was also resolved that a copy of the requisition should be forwarded to the several market towns for the signature of those who may be disposed to concur in the measure.
Now, the reference to the greater evils which, if not prevented, appear to be inevitable is perhaps the key phrase here. It is not just that the local guardians of security saw an immediate threat to the state of their property, but they foresaw that things were going to get worse. How right they were. In brief, ordinary working people in rural areas were starting to feel severely under stress due to the introduction of new agricultural technology and other factors, including the enclosure of common land and the corn laws. But the subject of the second meeting that month in the Black Swan was the matter of tithes, the tax in effect paid by landowners to the Anglican Church. So controversial was this tax becoming that William Cobbett, the controversial newspaper publisher and resident of Botley, devoted what he called his rural harangue to it, as he recounted.
Went to the Black Swan Inn to dine with the farmers. This is the manner that I like best of doing. At the dinner, we had a good number of opulent yeomen, and many gentlemen joined us after the dinner. The state of the country was well talked over, and during the session, much more sensible than some other sessions that I've had to remark on, I made the following harangue. Though many here, I am sure, are glad to see me, I am not vain enough to suppose that anything other than that of wishing to hear my opinions on the prospects before us can have induced many to choose to be here to dine with me to tease. But I shall state one particular wish in that shape, that it may be the more distinctly understood and the better remembered. The wish to which I allude relates to the tithes.
Now, according to Cobbett, the increasing level of tithes in the all-round evil tithe system meant that money which should be going into the pockets of the farmers and the agricultural workers was being diverted instead to members of the clergy.
Ah, you cut that, okay. Moreover, he pointed out, the scheme that appears to have been fallen upon us is the strangest in the world, and it must, if attempted to be put into execution, produce something little short of open and general commotion, namely, that of reducing the wages of labour to a mark so low as to make the labourer a walking skeleton. It would be cruelly unjust to wring from the labourer the means of paying rent while those taxes and tithes remain. Something must be taken off. The labourer's wages have already been reduced as low as possible. All public pay and salaries ought to be reduced, and the tithes also ought to be reduced to a great amount without any toast, leaving you to drink it or not, as you please. A large reduction of tithes. I propose to drink this toast with 3 times hip hip hoorays.
Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray!
Thank you, gentlemen. Accordingly done. And the sound might have even been heard down to the close
Now, it is no great surprise that Cobbett threw in at the end there that rather contemptuous reference to the cathedral close. Although Cobbett was a member of the Church of England,
has been given out of public taxes, partly raised on the labourers, for the relief of the poor clergy of the church. While it is glorious, that relief is given in numerous cases by twos and threes to the same person. While clamour enough to make the sky ring is made about what is given in the shape of relief to characterise the system under which we live. Does not this prove that a change and a great change is needed?
so a great change is wanted, but wanted by